Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
You can tell a lot about a company by where it invests. At ConocoPhillips, we're investing in Arctic science and engineering at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And we're supporting today's students and tomorrow's engineers at UAF. In fact, today, more than 100 of our employees are University of Alaska graduates, and our future is in their hands. We happen to think that's a pretty good investment. ConocoPhillips, Alaska's oil and gas company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, thanks again for joining us for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Well, taking a look at the summary of the heavy snow that fell across the northern southeast coast. The standout there, Haines, picking up over 2 feet, which ended last night. That started actually about 24 hours worth, just about, maybe a little bit longer. But as of 9 p.m. last evening, over 2 feet of snow there. They carried heavy snow from about 7 in the morning until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon or so. But that's all changed over to rain now. Some of the other heavy air, obviously in and around the Haines area, about 21 inches. And then up near Skagway, close to 17 inches falling. But that's all ended now. And south winds broke through today or this morning through Lincoln all the way up to Skagway, gusts of 46 miles an hour midday today up at Skagway. Of course, that pushed temperatures up into the lower 40s there, but still a lot of rain going on today. Not quite as heavy, but several bands of moisture rotating into the panhandle there. Heaviest amounts up here over the northern locations, but Sitka still picking up just under an inch of rain in the 24-hour period ending at 4 p.m. this afternoon, while about 1/3 of an inch fell at Yakutat. Pretty rainy day there, occasionally mixed with snow at times. And also a little more rainfall, but more of the intermittent or showery type down toward Klawock and over toward Ketchikan and Annette in those locations. Lots of clear skies in the dry air coming down out of the interior here from the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula. In fact, clear skies all the way up to the Brooks Range there, and then you get into some variable cloudiness that continues to move in from the Arctic across the North Slope and the Arctic coast. But a lot of clear skies showing up in the observations this afternoon, but temperatures well below zero. Some areas struggling to get into the mid-20s up there across the North Slope. Nice day over Bristol Bay as well, but some cloudiness out here off the southwest coast. Actually an upper level trough providing southeast wind flow in the upper levels, and that carrying milder air with some moisture, overrunning the colder air that's out and locked in over the Bering Sea there. So that provided enough lift to bring some areas of light snow, pretty continuous here from just off the coast across the Pribilos, but nothing too heavy. Winds, though, kicking up to 40 miles an hour, and gusts created some blowing snow conditions, resulting in IFR at times there, both St. Paul and St. George. A breakdown here along the Alaska Peninsula where the light snow at Unalaska stopped, and kind of was just a cloudy afternoon there, but you can see the next storm right there with the back edge of the frontal boundary right in that area, moving northeastward. So you're right on the edge of it at the last frame of the shot here, which was at 1 p.m. Otherwise, up to the north, again, not a lot going on. Mostly clear skies here. You can see the clouds, once the winds come off the ice edge, tend to pick some moisture up. And so that makes a pretty continuous cloud cover all the way down to the Aleutians, so you get some breaks. You can see the last couple of bands here moving into the panhandle. They kind of consolidate as they interact with the terrain, so it goes from showers to more of a continuous precipitation pattern, but that will begin to taper off and slowly diminish throughout the evening and overnight tonight. It's on the chart, a couple of low centers here. The wetter one to the east, this is more of a dry low circulation, just a weak trough, and then one that moved inland, the main one, and you can see the rainfall, but a lot of clearing back off the coast, and that's what's going to be moving in there tonight and probably into early tomorrow morning as well. Otherwise, just clear skies. A very weak trough up there over the Arctic, providing those variable clouds and maybe a few flurries, especially over here towards the western Arctic coast and Atasuk, seeing some very light snow or flurries. Same thing for Point Leyte. And the wind's picking up here. Still have a wind chill advisory out for tonight for Kivalina right down to the western Seward Peninsula, Tin City, Wales, and down into St. Lawrence Island. Those winds 20 to 30 miles an hour, gusts maybe to 35 at times, and wind chills running 40 to 50 below zero tonight. And in through the mid part of tomorrow morning, I think those wind chill advisories end around the 10 a.m. or noontime time frame there, when temperatures will come up and the winds probably will hold on, maybe diminish a little bit, but more for a rise in the temperatures. Otherwise, a lot of snow showers and clouds out over the Bering Sea, and then breaking out a little bit here in response to the advance of this next system, which we'll see tonight takes a pretty good jog to the northeast here up to Kodiak Island, with snow, possibly starting out as snow, changing over to a mixed condition, then rain just ahead of that frontal system as the southeast winds kicking up to possibly as high as gale force there. Otherwise, northeasterlies keeping the cold air in along the north side of the peninsula and wrapping back down into the eastern Aleutians there. So look for a pickup in the winds out in that area. No change out to the west, lots of snow showers and continued chilly northeast winds. We have a trough here of low clouds currently right in about this area. That's going to lift northward tonight, and that could spread a little bit of moisture in the form of scattered flurries or fog and flurries in across Prince William Sound and the Kenai Peninsula coastline, and that'll extend in across the southeast coast. This is the last of the series of troughs, so definitely may not even notice it. Just look for a general increase or decrease of the showers there over the panhandle, probably ending altogether by midnight tonight or possibly a little after. Then you'll be into this condition here, which will move in late tonight and early tomorrow ahead of this next frontal system. And the jet stream will be oriented to carry this front right up into the southeast coast tomorrow. So it's going to move quite rapidly in a rather strong jet and bring the winds up dramatically along, especially the north coast here. Look for storm force winds tomorrow afternoon to develop up through this area, and definitely small craft advisories, rain moving in, and probably will cover the entire area by 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. And up here, a big push to the north, so conditions, ceilings, visibilities coming down. Look for some good rainfall to move up to the North Gulf Coast ahead of the front. Tonight, the strongest winds, again, maybe gale force. Looks like the strongest winds will be out in this portion, associated with a stronger jet off to the west, and so not so much strong winds into the Kodiak Island area, but they will drop off. What does pick up will drop off, and the rain will become a little more showery there tonight as that lifts northward late or sometime tomorrow morning in toward noontime. It'll pull up to the north, the main low center back to the south, and still snow across the Kuskokwim Delta, down across Bristol Bay into the Alaska Peninsula. And there's a winter weather advisory out for tomorrow here for the peninsula for snow and blowing snow. And winds could gust up to 60 miles an hour in the windier areas like King Cove there. And pretty brisk winds out here along the coast as well, especially off the Yukon Delta coast back up towards St. Lawrence Island. But dry conditions up there with sunshine. These clouds will be moving northward, so look for dry conditions. Well, it's definitely from the Alaska Range northward to the Arctic coast. Looks mostly clear, just some excuse me, patchy fog there on the east side, but generally VFR across this region. Then some stuff coming down from the north there could bring some low clouds and variable patches of fog right down to St. Lawrence Island. And then the snow showers out over the Bering Sea. And for Tuesday, it looks like once the rain gets going here tomorrow night, you're in for probably quite a period of solid rain, heavy at times, just non-stop there as the frontal boundary stalls out over the central and southern portions there, and then another wave develops along that, moves up to about this position during the afternoon on Tuesday. So look for full gales to return to the south coast as this pulls northward. And it'll probably take much of Tuesday night to get this thing through. So you're going to see rain heavy at times starting tomorrow evening, and then lasting through Tuesday and Tuesday night, and possibly even into Wednesday morning until that moves through. Otherwise, the original low tracking northward here into Cook Inlet, roughly in about this position, which means places like Palmer, Wasilla, Anchorage, on down to Kenai, Soldotna. Won't see much in the way of snow, but if it should track a little farther to the east there, say up into Resurrection Bay or western Prince William Sound, well, that'd be a different story then. Either way, places like Valdez and the North Gulf Coast here will see a fair amount of snow with that. Lesser amounts, of course, up into the Copper River Basin. But there is a winter storm watch out for the Susitna Valley for beginning tomorrow night, and winter storm warning out for the parts of the Kenai Peninsula here, especially north near and north in Moose Pass for heavy snow. And some of that, of course, will be blowing around. And so a good shot of snow coming into some areas, if not most areas of south central Alaska, and then an area of snow on Tuesday back out to the west, extending north along the frontal boundary right in this area, but becoming very light with minimal accumulations farther to the north, and then the remnants of that front giving some light snow along the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, mostly clear back out through the northwest into the northern Bering Sea. Less wind now, but quite cold temperatures locked in over the Bering Sea. But snow showers a little less numerous, but a lot of clouds. So areas IFR there, even along the Aleutians, definitely for the Pribilofs, kind of an up and down condition there. And the snow and blowing snow diminishing and restricted to the Bering Sea side of the peninsula now. This is the next system right here that looks at this point will be tracking eastward on the warm side of the Arctic front here, and then take a turn to the north and actually follow a path similar to this one. So it looks like some heavy weather will be back into the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island Wednesday and Wednesday night, and then that whole pattern will shift up into southern Alaska on Wednesday or on Thursday, and bring more unsettled conditions and possibly rain and snow, gusty winds late in the week. Temperatures this afternoon, we're in the lower to mid 20s here out over the Pribilof Islands. Otherwise, the Aleutians, lower 30s there at Chimia to 36 over at Unalaska, upper 30s along the peninsula, then back down into the teens and lower 20s there. King salmon poked up to 21. 10 to 15 up here over the deltas, with even colder temperatures up to the northwest, just single numbers. Southern Alaska, right along the coast, 32 at Homer and 36 at Seward, while Cordova had 31, but just 15 at Gulkana, 23 in Anchorage, and single numbers up here in the Tanana Valley. The southeast coast, warmest location in the state today, again with upper 30s to lower 40s across the entire stretch of the area now. Up into the interior, Tanana Valley rising a shade above zero here. Actually, Fairbanks up to 7, but 2 below at Fort Yukon and -9 Arctic Village. Just 22 below at Anatuvik this afternoon, and -26 over at Dead Horse, and a -21 at Atusuk. Otherwise, Kivalina 1 above, and Kotzebue 1 below, 5 below over here at Buckland, -2 at Shishmaref. But Nome pushed on the good side of zero there with 6 degrees, but remaining below zero out at Savunga with gusty north winds as high as 35 miles an hour. Lows tonight in the -20s, -30s, mid-40s again over the Yukon Flats, as well as the North Slope and out to the Arctic coast. Well below zero readings back all over the northwest, and then right down into the deltas and the mid-Yukon and Kuskokwim River Valley areas, with Bethel looking at a low about 5 below. Otherwise, single numbers here over southern Alaska with 30s, mild 30s above freezing there across the southeast coast. Highs for tomorrow staying cold up here over the north and northeast, but look for conditions to gradually warm up, especially as the clouds and winds begin to move in, but struggling to make 40 there for Kodiak and portions of the Alaska Peninsula, staying in the 30s here where those northeast winds will prevail down, especially in across the eastern Aleutians. Quite cold for the Pribilofs. The southeast coast will be the warm area once again in the lower 40s. And for the Flying weather, again, sea lanes visibilities coming down starting this evening here, actually Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, even the eastern Aleutians, and then they'll all be shifting northward as the front comes northward, and look for IFR to develop along all of western Cook Inlet right up to the east slopes of the Alaska Range and northward, progressing northward throughout the day. IFR along right up to the coastline, probably by early afternoon tomorrow along the Panhandle, and another swath of IFR out here from Kuskokwim Bay, actually from about the Kuskokwim River there, right down into the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Passes VFR for Adigan tomorrow and staying wide open for Anaktuvuk as well. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, becoming marginal in the pass itself, staying VFR on the west side, becoming IFR in the eastern approaches. That same forecast also for rainy lowest conditions. IFR will be on the east side, VFR over toward the valley. And for windy, VFR may become marginal by late afternoon on the southern entrance. Isabel, VFR, but possibly becoming marginal for the southern entrance there as well. But I think Mentasta will stay VFR throughout the entire day. And Tanita, VFR becoming marginal. Downward trend for Portage as well. If it's not, doesn't start out IFR tomorrow morning, it will be shortly thereafter to even probably low IFR into the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, if it becomes VFR, then look for it to go back to marginal VFR during the afternoon hours. The later, the greater chances. Hopefully the IFR holding off until tomorrow night or the next day. And for the freezing levels at the surface here, south of the Aleutians, coming back up tomorrow morning, or early tomorrow morning, late tonight, right along the peninsula. And again, that south to north flow associated with the push of the warm front coming up, spreading milder conditions, putting it right back up to the coastline and then inland there over the Panhandle. And icing threats, look for some areas of moderate rime or mixed icing, mostly below the 15,000 foot level, Kenai Peninsula, and along the Alaska Peninsula there, and then back along the front, along and just in advance of it, with icing threats pushing up to the North Gulf Coast into the afternoon. Upper level wind flow chart showing the upper low now right into Bristol Bay tomorrow. South wind flow coming around that anywhere from 40 to 80 knots and 90 knots, mostly in conjunction with that low up to the northwest. But the main jet here, southerlies, up to about 130 knots, and that all aiming right up into the north central Panhandle area. For the 9,000 foot winds, very strong here, 60 knots coming up from the southeast, and about the same at 3,000 feet. Very strong winds here, but mostly over toward the east, and that'll all be shifting up toward the Panhandle late tomorrow and tomorrow night. Northerlies remaining back out over the Bering Sea. Severe turbulence coming up from the northeast Pacific and working up into Prince William Sound and right up to the coastline tomorrow afternoon. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
You know, it'd be a lot of fun to get in this airplane and go flying with this person, but you and I have work to do. So let's talk about how TAFs are formatted. Now, the first line of each TAF starts at the left margin with the report header and the station identifier. Now, all other lines of a TAF will be indented at least 5 spaces, and any additional lines of a group will be indented 6 spaces. Now, the first forecast group, the one right after the when, which in this case is 19th day of the month at 11:30 Zulu, and right after the valid time period, which in this case 19th day of the month at 1200 Zulu to the 20th day of the month at 1200 Zulu, that first weather group belongs for the beginning time, which is the 19th day of the month at 1200 Zulu. So that's the beginning of the forecast period, and that's the beginning forecast weather. And what we're forecasting in this particular case is a variable wind of 16 knots gusting to 28 knots. And we have better than 6 statute miles visibility and scattered clouds at 500 feet. And we'll check over on the left-hand side. We have broken clouds at 2,500 feet, and those are cumulonimbus clouds. So that's the first forecast weather. Now, a significant change in the weather is indicated by a new forecast group. We'll call that a from group. In this case, it says from 1845 Zulu. Now, this from group will always start on a new line, and it'll be indented 5 spaces from the left margin. Now, from groups have to contain all of the elements of a forecast if those elements exist, because this is basically a new weather forecast. Other groups might contain only the changes. Now, the from group, as you see right here, is indicated a change in the forecast conditions, but it's one that's expected to take place pretty quickly. At any rate, the change is expected to take place in less than 1 hour. So we have here the from group, and what we're saying from 1845 Zulu, the wind is now expected to be from 160 degrees at 10 knots. We still have better than 6 miles, statute miles visibility, but the sky is clear. So that is the from group, and that's for a relatively quick change in the weather. But if you have a more gradual change in the weather, that's indicated that it might occur over a time period, then you'll use becoming instead. Here we have becoming from the time period at 2200 Zulu going to 2400 Zulu. We're having a becoming, which is a gradual change in the weather. So that's going to take place in this time group, and it's normally a 2-hour time period. It could be less than that, but it's a gradual change in the weather. Now the change is the wind is from 200 degrees at 13 knots, gusting to 20 knots. Let's see if we have anything else on the left-hand side for that, and we don't. So all we had now was a change in the wind. All other forecast items are expected to remain as they were previously forecast, and only the wind changed, and that wind will be the prevailing wind from then on in until it gets changed again. So the wind from then on in will be as changed in that becoming group. Now we have another group up here called a tempo group. And this indicates changes that are going to be temporary in nature. So temporary in nature from 400 to 500 Zulu, here are the conditions. And these are changes that are expected to affect the weather for less than 1 hour each time they happen. And in total, to last less than half of this time period indicated right here. Now, they're going to tell us what is going to change during that temporary group. And temporarily here, we'll have from 400 to 500 Zulu, broken clouds at 5,000 feet. Now, that is the only thing that is expected to change. All other elements are expected to remain as forecast during previous time periods. Now we have something coming up here, probability 40. And what they're saying is the probability is 40% that this will occur. They could also say probability 30%. So, and that probability, by the way, is that group is used to forecast the probability of, we'll say, thunderstorms or other precipitation, and also the associated weather conditions that might go along with that. So here we have probability 40 that during the time period from 600 Zulu to 800 Zulu that will have 2 statute miles visibility, and a thunderstorm with moderate rain. So that's worth talking about. There's a probability of 40% that's going to happen, and also an overcast with 800-foot clouds, and those clouds will be cumulonimbus clouds. And then we have another becoming, and the thing I want to point out in this becoming, from 900 to 1100 Zulu, we have here no significant weather, NSW, and I wanted to tell you what that means. No significant weather will be included in a becoming or tempo group to indicate that no significant weather is expected, and the previously mentioned weather has ended. So now you have a good idea how TAFs are formatted.
Welcome back. We'll look for the winds to increase after the break tonight, and light winds coming up to 30 knots on the south coast, as high as 40 to 50 knots up along the north coast there. Some point in the afternoon. Still 25-knot winds, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, but 15 knots here down to the south. But even these areas will begin coming up, probably not until at the earliest late tomorrow afternoon and into the early evening. And then for Tuesday, winds lighter up here to the north now as the main front pushes off, but an increase back to gale force winds as that next wave pulls up to off the south coast, and that'll even kick the inside water winds up to 25 knots with higher gusts. 15 knots the central areas, and roughly at about 20 knots Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay all from the south-southeast. Looks like the strongest winds will shift over to the eastern Gulf Coast behind the front, but early in the day they'll be stronger, probably looking at gale force winds back through this area. But that'll lift up into Prince William Sound tomorrow afternoon there. Easterlies 35 knots, northeast 20 to 30 knots across Cook Inlet, and then lighter winds across Kodiak Island, just 15 to 20 knots. And for Tuesday, southwesterlies 20 to 25 knots there, but very light wind conditions at low center, somewhere up over Cook Inlet, and so a very light variable wind pattern up there coming light west across the Barren Islands. South to north flow here, 25 to 30 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Bristol Bay, northeast 25. The Alaska Peninsula northerlies at 35 with higher gusts there out of the passes. Northeast 20 for a lighter wind pattern southwest of Kodiak Island. That swings around to the west, but still light on Tuesday. Much lighter winds now in store for the Alaska Peninsula, and small craft advisories continue for Bristol Bay. Out in the Aleutians for the east side there, the Fox Islands, north to northwest, 25 to 30 knots there for some small craft advisories, but lighter out here to the west, just 10 to 15 knots over toward Adak and to Chimera. Then everything will pick up a little bit out here, east or east-northeasterlies, 20 to 30 knots from Chimera all the way over to about Atka. Then things are going to drop off considerably there, just 10-knot winds across the Fox Islands and Dutch Harbor. For the southwest coast tomorrow, northerlies 25 to 30 knots everywhere here, right down across the Pribilof Islands. So small craft or brisk wind advisories drop back to just 25 knots around St. Lawrence Island, coming down to 15 knots there for the Pribilof. So quite a drop off in the wind, but very cold temperatures here. These 20-knot winds still providing freezing spray. For the Arctic coast, maybe up to 20 knots on the east side there. That's probably too high of a forecast. Otherwise 5 to 10 for mostly easterlies, northerlies 20 to 25. And then for Tuesday, about the same wind speed, a little more northeasterly in these areas. East maybe up to 20 knots around Kaktovik, northeast 10 until you get around here to Cape Lisburn, turning northerlies and up to 25 knots there all the way down into the Bering Strait. And looking at tonight again, big storm coming northward. The low center hanging back, but the frontal system riding a pretty strong southwest jet pushing up into this area. So back into the heavy weather here for Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula tonight. Clear and cold up over the interior, and should be a ending to the precipitation for a short time there for the Panhandle. Then it rolls right back in tomorrow afternoon. Also pushing northward. Winter storm warning for heavy snow for the western Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula areas. Starting tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night, and then it looks like going to get a good solid stretch of rain there over the southern Panhandle, probably until Thursday.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
If you are interested in serving on your local Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council, the deadline to apply is Friday, March 21st. The councils provide information and recommendations to the Federal Subsistence Board on subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing. For more information on the advisory councils and how to apply, call 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov. This message sponsored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.